This happened recently. I was looking to fill my small apartment after my divorce, and I needed some cheap furniture. Facebook Marketplace had a lot of interesting options. I wouldn't say I was desperate, but I just wanted my place to feel like home again. I think I felt a little lost in my new neighborhood with all the busy streets. I've never stopped thinking about it. I found this vintage lamp online. The listing had no profile picture, which seemed strange. I thought maybe the seller was just private. I messaged them anyway. The replies were short and didn't explain much. Maybe I was being silly, but I felt drawn to it. It felt wrong, but it also felt right. I arranged to pick it up the next day. The seller's location was only a few blocks away, so I walked there in the afternoon. When I arrived, the house was old and run down. I knocked on the door, and a shadow moved behind the curtain. After what felt like ages, the door creaked open. The seller looked at me, but didn't say a word. They handed me the lamp quickly, wrapped in a dirty cloth, and shut the door. I was left standing there, holding it. I felt a chill run down my spine. I took the lamp home, thinking it might not matter in the long run. That night, I set the lamp on my desk. The light flickered as I plugged it in. It didn't work quite right. I sat on my bed, trying to focus on my work. Around midnight, I heard a quiet tapping sound. I thought I was imagining things at first. Maybe it was the wind. But the tapping continued, as if it was coming from the lamp. I felt uneasy. I got up to inspect it. My belongings felt off in the room. My books were slightly out of place, and my chair was pushed back farther than I remembered. I called myself paranoid. No one was there, just me and the lamp. I turned it off and tried to sleep. It was just an object, right? In the morning, I found a message on my phone. It was from the seller. "You have to set things right," it said. I didn't know what they meant. Later that evening, as I worked late, the lamp flickered again. I stood up, heart racing. I wished I had never bought it. I wanted to throw it away, but couldn't bring myself to. Then there was another message. "They need to know." I felt something cold brush against my neck. I turned, but nobody was there, just the lamp, glowing. I stared at it, confusion flooding my mind. Was this really happening? Suddenly, another message popped up. "You shouldn't have taken it." I looked at the lamp one more time, and it flickered in response. I felt my breath catch. What was going on? The air felt heavier. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me. I didn't know how to escape the strange pull the lamp had on me. In that moment, I knew I had to make a choice. The following day, I decided to investigate. I couldn't just ignore the strange messages and the weird feelings. As much as I wanted to forget about the lamp, I had a nagging curiosity. There had to be a reason why I was feeling this way. Maybe the seller could provide some answers. I pulled up the Facebook Marketplace app and searched for the seller's listing again. My heart raced a little as I found it. The profile was still devoid of any personal details. No picture, no way to know who they were. I clicked on the seller's name, hoping it would lead me to more information, but it only brought me back to the same empty profile. I felt a pit in my stomach. I stared at the lamp sitting on my desk. It gleamed in the daylight, deceptively innocent. I needed to learn more, so I typed the seller's name into the search bar. Scrolling through the results, my heart stopped as I saw a post. It was a thread discussing cursed objects in a local group. I clicked the link, and my eyes widened as I read people's first-hand stories. One story detailed a similar lamp, claiming it had haunted the last owner, driving them to madness. I felt a chill creep over me. I should have stopped there, but curiosity pushed me to continue. Each anecdote fed my growing sense of dread. They all had something in common, a warning that these objects brought misery. My mind raced. What if I had unknowingly invited something terrible into my life? I glanced at the lamp again, the flickering light catching my eye. This was too much. I needed to do something. I decided to return to the seller's house. Maybe they could clarify what they knew, even if it was just from a creepy comment section. When I arrived, the day had turned gray, clouds looming like shadows. I knocked on the door, but no one answered. I waited, heart pounding, scanning the area. I thought I saw a shape inside, but it didn't move. My instinct screamed at me to leave, but I was already too deep. While I waited, I noticed something on the porch, an old chair that looked familiar. I could have sworn it was in one of the photos from the listing. Or was it? I took a step closer, examining the wood. That's when I noticed a small piece of paper underneath it. Bending down to grab it, I felt a sudden rush of cold air whip past me. My skin prickled with apprehension. I unfolded the paper, revealing a neat scrawl. Find them before it's too late. My pulse quickened. Who was them, and why hadn't I noticed this before? I looked around, feeling an uneasy weight pressing down on me. I turned to retrace my steps back to my apartment, but as I did, a figure appeared in the window. A face stared back, and my breath caught in my throat. I wasn't alone anymore. I didn't move. My eyes were glued to the window, heart pounding. The figure didn't shift or show any sign of recognition. It just watched. I took a shaky step back, my mind racing. Who were they? What did they want? Suddenly, the figure vanished. One moment it was there, and the next it was gone. I felt the air grow heavier, and my instincts kicked in. I had to leave, now. I turned on my heel and hurried down the porch steps, my thoughts frantically scrambling for a logical explanation. My breath came in quick bursts as I walked briskly away from the house. The unease settled deeper in my gut. The strange encounter felt like a warning. I reached my apartment, slamming the door behind me. I leaned against it for a moment, trying to catch my breath, my heart still racing. I glanced at the lamp sitting ominously on my desk. Should I get rid of it? Would that even help? I focused on the small note I found earlier, the one that haunted me. Find them before it's too late. Who was them? I tried to shake the question from my mind, but it clung to me like shadows in the corner of my vision. I pulled out my phone and started to look up the other stories about cursed objects again. I thought if I could find some connection, it could help me understand. As I scrolled through the posts, one in particular caught my eye. It told of a group of people who had searched for the origins of their cursed items, a group that had supposedly found the original seller. What if I could do the same? I quickly copied down some of the usernames of the people who had posted, hoping they might lead to more information. I felt a surge of determination. Perhaps I could track down this group. It was worth a shot. After digging through the comments for what felt like hours, I noticed a name, Clara. She had responded multiple times and even mentioned where to find them. I jotted down the address and glanced outside. The sun was dipping below the horizon, casting long shadows that crawled along the pavement. I debated whether to go tonight or wait until morning. My gut told me to act fast. Whatever this was, time felt like it was running out. I grabbed my jacket and left my apartment, a mix of urgency and fear thrumming through me. The streets were quiet, the silence wrapping around me like a cloak. I arrived at the address, a small, nondescript house on the outskirts of town. It looked ordinary enough, but a shiver ran down my spine. I knocked, not sure what to expect. As I waited, I remembered the last message written on that note. A feeling of dread settled back over me as the door finally creaked open. Clara stood there, her expression serious as she studied me. "Thanks for coming," she said, but her voice held a weight I hadn't anticipated. "You need to come in. We don't have much time." Before I could respond, someone shouted from inside, "Clara, send her away. We can't risk it." My mind raced. What was happening? What danger lay ahead? I wanted to turn and run, but Clara held the door open, revealing a world of confusion and urgency beyond the threshold. I stepped inside, ready to find out what had pulled me deeper into this mess. Inside, a dim light flickered over a small gathering of people. Clara motioned for me to follow her, leading me deeper into the house. I felt the weight of curious glances as a few heads turned in my direction. Their eyes were wide and fearful, adding to my unease. "Listen, I know this is all very strange," Clara began, her voice low, "but we need your help. It won't be safe much longer." "Safe from what?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady despite the growing knot in my stomach. She hesitated, glancing back at the group. "From them, the people we've been following. They know about the cursed items, and they're looking for the ones who have them." My throat went dry. "But how do you know about mine?" "Because we've seen it before," a woman interjected. "Once it's in your possession, you become a target." "Target for what?" I pressed, alarm rising in me. "Curses have consequences," another member said, his voice gravelly. "And they don't just affect the owner, it spreads." I shook my head, unable to absorb it all. "I don't understand. What do you mean it spreads?" "The more people who own cursed items, the more powerful the curse becomes. We've been following a seller who seems to be at the center of it. It's like a chain, and if we don't break it—" Clara trailed off, her eyes full of worry. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "So what do we do?" Clara opened her mouth to respond, but before she could, the lights dimmed further. A sudden chill swept through the room, and the air crackled with tension. Murmurs broke out among the group, panic evident on their faces. Then someone shouted, "They're here!" I turned, my heart racing as shadows danced across the walls. A sense of terror washed over me, and I realized I might have walked into a situation far worse than I expected. The door banged open, and figures slipped in, faces obscured by darkness. "Clara, we have to go!" I nearly yelled. She nodded, looking frantic. "Follow me!" As we scrambled toward a back exit, I glanced back. One figure stepped forward, catching a glimpse of their face. My blood went cold. They were familiar. The figure from my— "Run!" Clara urged, and I snapped back to reality. We bolted towards a narrow corridor, my mind racing. How had they found me? I couldn't shake the feeling that this had all been planned. The note, the warning, everything. This was only the beginning. As we reached a doorway, I heard someone call my name. I stumbled, heart slamming against my chest. Then everything went dark. When I opened my eyes, I was lying on the cold floor of the dimly lit room. Clara was beside me, her expression a mix of concern and urgency. I quickly got to my feet, shaking off the disorientation. The sounds of commotion faded into an eerie silence, and I felt overwhelming confusion wash over me. "What happened?" I asked, my voice shaky. "We had to hide," Clara replied, glancing toward the door. "They got too close. I'm not even sure how they tracked us here." I felt the weight of her words sink in. The people who wanted the cursed items were relentless. "We need to leave, now." Clara nodded and grabbed my wrist. We moved cautiously toward a nearby window. I peered out, and the night felt suffocating. There was a figure lurking outside, just beyond the range of the light. I recognized that silhouette, another face from my window. "Do you think they're looking for us?" I whispered, fear creeping into my voice. "They're probably searching every place in this neighborhood," Clara said, her eyes darting. "We have to make sure they don't see us." I looked around the room. It was sparsely furnished, just an old couch and a table piled with papers. I could sense the tension in my chest growing tighter. Clara began searching for another exit, but just as she turned to the door, a loud bang echoed outside. I froze. My instincts screamed at me to run, but I couldn't leave Clara behind. "What do we do?" I whispered urgently. "We need to distract them," she said, her eyes narrowing as a plan formed. She grabbed a book from the table, its cover dusty and ancient. "If we can create a diversion, we can slip past them." A surge of adrenaline fueled me. "Do you think it'll work?" "We don't have a choice." Clara's voice was steady, a comfort amid the chaos. Just then the door rattled, making us both jump. Clara threw her arm in front of me, and I knew instinctively that the time to act was now. She hurled the book at the window with all her strength. It shattered with a loud crash, letting in a rush of cold air and fragments of glass that scattered on the floor. "Go!" Clara shouted, sprinting to the side wall, just as the shadow outside jerked toward the noise. I followed her lead, my heart pounding in my ears. I had never felt so alive with fear. As we darted past the door, I caught a glimpse of another figure rushing toward the commotion. My mind raced. They were everywhere. They're not just looking for cursed items, I realized. They're hunting us. We sprinted down a narrow hallway, desperate to find an exit. I could hear their footsteps growing closer, the sound of my breath mingling with the echo around us. I didn't know who was more determined to catch us. Their pursuit felt unending. That's when I saw it, a door at the end of the hall, slightly ajar, with warmth spilling out. "Clara!" I tugged on her arm, pointing. But before we could reach it, the door swung open, revealing another figure with familiar features, clothed in dark attire. My stomach dropped as I recognized them. A man who had also been peering through my window. "Stop!" he commanded, his voice a low growl. Panic surged through me. I had nowhere left to go. My heart raced as I realized the figure blocking our escape was someone I had seen before, but the details were hazy. I felt a tight knot form in my stomach. "Who are you?" I managed to gulp out. "Doesn't matter," he replied, his eyes narrowing in on Clara and me. "What matters is that you're in the wrong place at the wrong time." Clara stepped in front of me, trying to shield me from whatever threat he posed. "We're not here to cause trouble. We just—" "Save it." He lunged forward, and instinct kicked in. I pushed Clara aside and bolted for the door, adrenaline propelling my legs. Just as I reached the doorway, he grabbed my shoulder and yanked me back. I stumbled, trying to break free. "You don't know what you're dealing with. I can help you," he shouted, his grip tightening. "Help us?" I spat out, anger and fear mixing in my veins. "How can we trust you?" Clara was right behind me, ready to defend, but I needed answers. "I'm not the one hunting you," he said, his voice low and urgent, glancing over his shoulder as if he expected someone to come bursting through the door behind him. Before I could respond, a loud thud reverberated through the hallway, and I risked a glance behind us. The sound was a reminder that we had no time to waste. "Clara, now!" I shouted, breaking free from his grasp just as she charged forward. The man hesitated for a split second before he jumped in our path again. "Wait, listen, you need to know what's coming." Clara looked at me, uncertainty etched on her face. Every instinct told me to run, but something about his urgency made me pause. "What do you know?" I questioned, my voice trembling but steady. He opened his mouth, but the unexpected creak of footsteps echoed down the hall, growing louder. "They're close," he muttered, shaking his head. "I'm not here to hurt you. Just trust me for a second." "Trust you?" I bristled. "You think I'm going to trust the guy who's been spying on us?" "Trust is a luxury you can't afford right now. We need to move," he insisted, taking a step back as the footsteps approached. In that moment, I made a split-second decision. "Fine, tell us what's going on while we run." I grabbed Clara's hand and we sprinted past him. He fell in step behind us, struggling to keep pace. "They want the items. They think you have them. They won't stop until they get what they want, but you can't let them." I turned my head, trying to listen to his words as the sound of pounding footsteps turned frantic. "What items?" "Cursed items, the kind that make them unstoppable." Just then, the flickering lights overhead went out, plunging us into darkness. I could barely see Clara beside me, just the outline of her panicked expression. My heart sank. "What now?" I whispered. The air felt thick with tension. The footsteps stopped, but I sensed the threat looming closer. Then I heard a voice, cold and commanding. "You can't hide from us. You have something that belongs to us." The urgency of their tone chilled my spine. We were cornered. I pulled Clara closer, trying to think of a way out, but the darkness wrapped around us like a fog, each breath heavy with uncertainty. Suddenly, I felt a hand gripping my arm from behind. "Let's go!" the man shouted as he yanked me away from the dark.
The chaos erupted again as the lights flickered back on, revealing the hallway filled with shadows and the faces of pursuers closing in. In that instant, I realized we'd entered a game much larger than ourselves, and we were just pieces on the board. As we dashed forward, I had no idea what awaited us, only the chilling certainty that the worst was yet to come. We raced down the hallway, my mind spinning with the man's urgent words. Cursed items, unstoppable. What could he possibly mean? My thoughts felt like quicksand, dragging me down. I only had a moment to process before the shadows behind us burst into action. "Turn left," the man shouted, pointing just as we reached an intersection. I didn't think twice. I yanked Clara with me as we veered left. My heart pounded as we navigated through the dimly lit corridor, the echoes of our footsteps mingling with the sounds of our pursuers growing more frantic. As we rounded another corner, I caught a glimpse of the man who had chased us, his face twisted with desperation and determination. "The door, up ahead," he yelled, indicating a plain black door at the end of the cramped hallway. "Do you know what's behind it?" I asked, glancing back at him. "Just trust me," he shouted again, and his urgency made it hard to argue. We sprinted toward the door, and as we reached it, I grabbed the handle and swung it open, not knowing what lay within. Before we could step inside, a flash of movement caught my eye. A figure emerged from the
darkness, blocking our path. It was one of them, the pursuers. The harsh light from the hallway illuminated the stranger's jagged features, and I felt bile rise in my throat. "You can't escape," they hissed, stepping closer. "Back!" Clara yelled, pushing me behind her as she stood her ground. The man moved beside her, ready to fight, but I felt frozen, trapped in shock. This wasn't some minor conflict. This was life and death. Before I could react, the pursuing figure lunged forward. In a split second, I thought of the cursed items, the collectibles Clara and I had stumbled upon just days ago. Had they truly put us in this danger? Realizing that fear would only weigh us down, I shouted, "Run!" The words poured out of me like a command, and somehow it snapped me out of my shock. We pushed past the figure, and something primal kicked in. The adrenaline coursed through my veins as I slammed the door shut behind us, heart racing. A heavy thud reverberated against the wood as someone collided with it. I pressed my back against the door, hoping it would hold long enough for us to think. "Where are we?" Clara gasped, trying to catch her breath. "A storage room," the man replied, scanning the darkness for another exit. "We need to find another way out and regroup." "Regroup?" I echoed. "Do you know more about this? Because so far your help has put us in more danger." He shot me a look, unflinching. "I'm not your enemy. We don't have time for this. You need to listen." The words stung, but he was right. We had little time. As I caught my breath, I looked around the storage room. Boxes were stacked haphazardly, and something at the corner caught my eye. A glimmer of something metallic. I inched closer and brushed dust aside, uncovering an old pendant, strangely familiar. "That's one of them," the man said, eyes wide. "We were looking for these. You need to give it to me before it's too late." "Give it to you?" I said incredulously. "What have you done to us?" Then we heard it again, a distant banging as our pursuers pounding on the door we had just left behind. It was too late to run again. I slowly turned my gaze back to the pendant, a new sense of urgency washing over me. It felt like a choice had been made, a line drawn in the sand. That's when I saw it, a flicker of movement behind the stacks of boxes. Someone else was in the room with us. "Who's there?" I shouted, my voice echoing off the walls, while fear seized my throat. The air in the storage room thickened, and I felt my heart drop. The flicker turned into a shadow, creeping closer, tangled in the darkness. "Show yourself," I demanded, trying to sound brave. I barely recognized my own voice. It trembled with fear. "Stop," the man beside me shouted, his gaze locked on the figure. Clara flinched and pressed closer to me, her eyes wide and terrified. The shadow stepped forward, revealing a woman with wild hair and eyes that looked like they had seen too much. She wore a torn coat, and I noticed the necklace around her neck, another pendant just like the one in my hand. "I'm not here to hurt you," she said, her voice raw and shaky. "I need your help." "Help?" I echoed, bewildered. "You're one of them, aren't you? Why should we trust you?" "Because I know what they want," she replied hurriedly, glancing nervously toward the door. "We don't have much time. You found the pendants, didn't you? That's why they're after you." "How do you know that?" Clara asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The woman hesitated. "I've been tracking them. They need the pendants to unleash a curse, one that it'll change everything. People will vanish," she warned, tears brimming in her eyes. "This isn't just some game." "What curse?" I pressed. "More importantly, why should we believe you? You look just as lost as we are." The woman stepped closer, and I could see the desperation etched into her features. "Because I've seen it, seen what they can do. I've lost friends, family. If we don't act now, we're not the only ones in danger. They're coming for all of us." The banging on the door intensified, a ruthless reminder that we were running out of time. The man spoke again, urgency clear in his tone. "We need to decide. Are we going to listen to her or risk facing whatever is behind that door?" I turned to Clara, who looked at the woman with a mixture of uncertainty and pity. It felt like our options were slipping away. The pendants in our hands were our only connection to this chaos. "What do we do?" Clara whispered. Her eyes searched mine for answers, but I felt just as lost. We might need her. If she knows something, it could help us understand what we're dealing with," I said hesitantly. "But if we do this, we have to be careful. We can't let our guard down." The pounding ceased for just a moment, replaced by a deafening silence that seemed to stretch forever. It felt like the calm before a storm, and every fiber in my being screamed for us to get out. Then the door lurched violently as someone was trying to force it open. I glanced back at the woman, who was now eyeing the shadowy stacks of boxes as if weighing on next move. "This way!" She suddenly darted toward a small window near the ceiling. "Seriously?" I shouted. But before I could form any more objections, she was climbing up, her fingers gripping the edge. I felt the need to follow her instinctively, but as I prepared to hoist myself up, another shadow joined the first, moving closer toward us. We were not alone in that room, and
whatever was hunting us was closing in fast. I hardly had time to think before the woman clambered through the window, disappearing into the night. I glanced at Clara and the man, whose eyes were wide with panic. Do we stay or follow? It felt like a lifetime passed in seconds. "Come on," I yelled, urgency propelling me forward. I reached for the window and boosted Clara up behind me. The moment she made it through, I climbed after her, barely managing to squeeze my body through the tight opening. The cold night air hit me like a wave as I landed on the grass outside the storage building. I quickly turned back to check on the man. He hesitated, glancing between us and whatever was lurking inside. "It's your choice," I called, my voice strained. He seemed to make up his mind, and in one hurried motion, he threw himself through the window. "Now what?" Clara asked, breathing hard as she looked around. The shadows from the building loomed behind us. The woman's silhouette darted into the trees nearby, leaving us little option but to follow. "Wait!" I called out, scrambling after her. The damp ground was uneven, and branches scraped at my arms as I pushed deeper into the woods. I could hear Clara and the man stumbling behind me, both of them clearly struggling to keep up. "Why are we trusting her?" the man gasped, catching up. "What if this is a trap?" "She says she knows something," I replied, my voice barely audible above the rustling leaves. "We need answers. We don't have time to think too much." We wound through the trees, following the woman's hurried footsteps. Suddenly, she stopped and we nearly collided with her. "Shh," she hissed, glancing around as if we were being hunted. Her breath came in shaky gasps. "This is the place." "Place?" I frowned, trying to catch my breath. "What are we doing here?" She pointed to a clearing ahead. The moonlight flickered through the branches, revealing symbols carved into the ground, glowing faintly in the darkness. Shapes seemed to pulse with an energy I couldn't quite understand. "What is this?" Clara asked, her eyes wide as she stepped closer, drawn to the strange markings. "It's a summoning circle," the woman said, her voice low. "They want to use the pendants to activate it, to summon something far worse than anything we've encountered. We need to destroy them." Before she could finish, a chilling wind whipped through the clearing, freezing us in our tracks. I felt a prickling at the back of my neck. I turned, scanning the surrounding shadows, and then saw them. Figures lurking just beyond the tree line. "You need to go," the woman shouted, panic flooding her tone. "I can't distract them for long." But it was too late. The figures stepped forward, eyes glowing, intentions unreadable. The night felt electric and heavy, a sense of impending doom pressing down around us. I could hardly breathe. Then everything went dark. The world around me faded, the looming figures blurring into nothingness. I reached out, desperate to hold on to something, anything, but my hands grasped only air. When I finally came to, I blinked against the bright sunlight streaming in through my apartment window. I sat up quickly, heart racing. My mind was foggy, the remnants of panic lingering, and I could hardly piece together what had happened in that dark place. I swung my legs over the side of my bed, attempting to ground myself in familiarity. It was just a dream. That's what I told myself as I rubbed my eyes. But no dream felt quite like the memories of being chased through the woods, the urgency echoing in my ears, the shadows looming ever closer. I stood and moved toward my desk, the vintage lamp casting its warm glow, seeming completely innocent. I hesitated, momentarily transfixed. Was it all real? The cursed items? The figures? Had Clara and the others escaped? I reached for my phone, searching for any signs or hints of them. The app was gone, defunct into the ether, as if it had never existed. A twinge of fear gripped my heart. What if they were still out there? What if the curse was real? A sudden ping interrupted my thoughts. A notification popped up, an unknown number. "You can't escape what you unleashed." It was from the cellar. Goosebumps rippled down my spine. Reality crumbled at the edges, leaving me with no comfort, only more questions. I glanced around the room as if the shadows might be lurking there, waiting for me. I shook my head, trying to clear it. Whatever terror had led me here didn't matter anymore. I glanced back at the lamp. "Just an object," I murmured. But was it? The realization twisted uncomfortably in my gut, and that nagging question pulled at my mind. Did I have the courage to dispose of it, to face what might come? That afternoon, I decided to take action. I put on my shoes, determination washing over me. I couldn't just sit around waiting for something to happen. I needed to cleanse whatever had seeped into my life. I stepped outside, feeling the weight of the world heavy on my shoulders. As I walked to the nearby park, I glanced back toward my apartment. Questions lingered in my mind, echoes of voices warning me of the consequences still haunting my steps. I reached the pond, the water shimmering, but nothing felt serene. I approached its edge, cautious. What if throwing the lamp into the water could break whatever connection it had? My heart raced at the thought as I pulled the lamp from my bag. But just as I was about to release it, my phone buzzed again, startling me. I dropped the lamp as I fumbled to answer. It was Clara. "You need to listen," she said breathlessly. "They won't stop looking for you." I turned around, taking in my surroundings. The sunlight glinted off the water. "But I thought the curse—" "Don't think about that now," she interrupted, her voice desperate. "We might be able to find the cellar. If we work together, there's a way to turn this around. For a moment, my breath caught. I felt the weight of possibility mingle with dread. What was true? What wasn't? The air shimmered with uncertainty, and I stood frozen, wrestling with conflicting thoughts. In the distance, I saw shadows lurking just beyond the trees, but I couldn't tell if they were just tricks of light or remnants of fear. I shook off the sensation, tightening my grip on the lamp in my hand. "I'll come find you," I finally replied, scooping up the lamp. "But I need to know what I'm dealing with. I need to know what they want." "Meet me at the cafe on Hawthorne," Clara replied. "It's not over yet." With that, I tucked the lamp back into my bag. I felt a strange pull toward the unknown, the looming shadows whispering in the back of my mind. I couldn't let fear dictate my life. I started walking, not certain what awaited me next, but knowing I had to confront it. I made it to the cafe, my heart thudding with uncertainty. Was I really ready to delve deeper into this tangled web of curses, shadows, and haunting figures? As I entered the cafe, Clara's familiar face lit up with relief. "You're here," she said softly, scanning my expression. "There's so much to explain." I took a deep breath, but a part of me was already preparing for whatever came next. Whether it was supernatural or just the cruel machinations of fate, something dark had intertwined with my life, and I needed to unravel it, one way or another. The world outside continued its dance, blissfully unaware of the curse that loomed over us. I felt the shadows follow me as I prepared for my next step into the unknown.